Yes, overcoming technical difficulties, we'll still come and record this episode together. So, welcome everybody to OK Everyday, a podcast about TA or transactional analysis where Jason and I continue diving into how to make our lives okay every day. Hey, Jason.
Hey, Ali.
And listen, before we get into our episode today, I wanted to remind you folks, our dear viewers and dear listeners, that season two was all about strokes. So, one thing I'm going to do now differently is I'm going to ask for a stroke from you. You know what? Please press the like button, press the subscribe button, and that would be a stroke for both Jason and I that we're doing a fabulous job and that you're enjoying all of the content that we're bringing to you. What do you say, Jason? Is
No,
that a good way to ask for a stroke?
Ali, I feel it already. I can feel the audience pressing those buttons already. Thank you, audience.
Thank you. Like buttons just going like that crazy. Imagine 6,000 subscribers. Why didn't I do that in season two? You know? Uh, but you know what? Today we continue to dive into drivers,
Mm.
right? So in episode one and two of this season, we introduced Try Hard. That was last episode. And then in the first episode, we were about Be Perfect. I'm not sure we were too perfect about being perfect, but we were okay. And now we're looking into a very different driver, which is called, drumroll,
These others, driver.
oh, the Please Others
Mm.
driver. So, and I mean, a lot of these drivers are very self-explanatory when you hear them, but when we talk about please others, what are we thinking about? What are we talking about?
Yeah, it's actually one of my favorite ones, if I'm going to be honest. And I think it's one that I certainly had when I was young, right? Because as we're going to talk about, Ollie, a lot of the stuff does come from our childhood. But
True.
the please others is a little bit like what it says in the box, So we have this driver within all of us where we
Mm,
want to please others, often to the best of our abilities, you know.
right.
And when we're talking about others, when we think about our childhood, we think about our child ego state, we're thinking about the people who are important to us then. And of
Mm,
course, the people who are important to us then are usually mom and dad, so our parents. So we're trying to please our parents in
mm,
some way, trying to make them happy,
right.
But it's not just parents, siblings. Yeah,
Okay.
oftentimes we would try and please our siblings because we want to hang out with them, we want to be on side with them, they're cool, all that kind of stuff. And then, of course, when we get into kind of more structured school, we certainly want to please our teachers,
Mm,
and partly is because we don't want to displease them,
right.
because that doesn't feel so good
Right.
when we displease them, right? So there's a lot in the please others driver which I really like, and
Mm.
I'm looking forward to us getting into it today to talk about the good stuff of the please others. But then what happens when it's not so good, when it starts to, like all the drivers, if they start to work
Mhm.
against us, start to trip us up, and get in the way, and create stress.
Right. You know what came to mind is it sounds like please others, the positive version of it, sounds like us doing a lot of really good strokes to one another.
Uh, well, in a way, it's definitely connected to strokes, but
Okay.
um, the please other driver will be active, not just because we're looking for strokes, because sometimes,
Right.
as from season two, we can get strokes and then kind of bat them away, be embarrassed by them. Do you know what I mean?
Boom.
Oh, really good job there, Ollie. And it's like, oh no, no, hang on. So it's, but at the same time, we do like them from
Right.
certain people. Do you know what I mean? Certain people,
Gotcha.
the kind of gravity of the weight of the strokes is quite
Right.
important. But the nice stuff really
Mm.
actually with the please others driver is it actually helps us get along in the world.
All right.
So there's kind of strokes in that. So if we fit into a group, if we're liked, you know, if we please the teacher because we turn up on time, we have the homework done, and they're pretty
Mm.
happy, and then mom and dad are pretty happy, then it feels good. And by extension, actually, and we'll talk a little bit about this later on. Society likes us to
Right.
kind of stick to the rules.
Right.
So if we're pleasing society by sticking to the rules, that that's good. We kind
Mm.
of not rocking the boat too much, and
Right.
equally, in work as well. So there's a lot of great positive benefits. And one of the reasons I like it, Ollie, more than anything, is it is the good kids and the good boys and good girls who, you know what I mean, do a lot of this,
Right.
often uncredited.
What do you mean by that?
So it's often teachers might be so busy um, giving out to the naughty kids in the
Ah.
class who are taking up a lot of attention that they forget to give strokes to the kids who are actually just quietly reading their book or quietly
Hmm.
coloring in or quietly whatever, because often to please others can be a quiet thing.
Right.
So often the teachers don't go, oh, well done, little Jason, you're doing really well there, by being quiet. That's,
Oh,
that's why
wow.
I like it because I was like that. I was quite quiet when I was a kid, you know?
E- Extension, a handshake. I was pretty quiet when I was a kid. I think I liked being quiet. I got a little bit more louder since then.
Do you think there was
So
maybe some please others in there for you, like when you were being quiet and just going about your whatever it is you're doing?
that's a great question. I can't say there was a please others thing, but I definitely think it was not standing out. So I didn't
Ah,
want to really stand out. It's kind of being quiet versus not being loud, so it was one of
mm,
those. But what I'm hearing, and again, the please others, as all the drivers are pretty self-explanatory in even the way they're phrased. But what you mentioned here is a few things I wanted to point out. A lot of it comes from the child and from a very good place to please the people who are very important to us.
mm,
Authority figures could be friends, could be teachers, could be the older sibling or siblings, older siblings to that. I know with mine is the older sibling. I have a sibling who's 11 years older,
mm.
and wanting to please them. But we wouldn't be talking about the driver though if there wasn't, a dark side to it, right? So there is a negative side. The dark
The
side.
dark side, the Darth Vader side of the drivers. Yes, and there is with all the
Oh,
drivers if they can get out of balance, right?
mm,
Because the negative side about the please others driver is if we're spending a lot of time trying to please others, we're not really thinking about what's good for us,
mm,
right? So therefore, we might hold back on speaking up or speaking out if we don't like something. Yeah.
right.
Even if we might be very experienced in some area and kind of be able to talk confidently about it. But if there's an authority figure there who's saying, no, no, I don't want to hear, or this is the way we're doing it, we might kind of clam up and not say anything because we don't want to rock the boat or annoy the manager or whatever. So sometimes it
Sure.
works against us because we're not speaking up and speaking out. But also, we can, like any driver, we can drive ourselves a bit crazy with it because we might be trying so hard to please so many people that
Hmm.
it's not really possible. The old adage, you can't please all the people all the time. So we can get so exhausted trying to please so many people that we really lose sight of ourselves and what's good for us. And we might get really, really stressed. An example
Mm,
again, which you might talk about, like might be in work. If there's
yeah.
just if somebody's um, quite competent and a lot of work is coming to them, well, people start to overly rely on them and keep on giving them work and keep them giving them work. So that person
Mm,
might just keep on taking on the work, keep on taking the work, thinking that they have to, and then they get burnt out. Or that you go on sick leave because
mm,
they didn't put their hand up and say, "No, I'm this is not okay. I'm getting too much work here, and I'm not going to take it on anymore." Right? Even,
hmm.
even though I am competent in that area, I just actually need to push back. So
Wow.
that's counter to the please others. That's kind of pleasing oneself, which is taking care of oneself if it's feeling a bit stressful.
That does resonate in a lot of ways, actually. Even to me personally, I think I've come to the realization that I'm happy with the way my life has progressed and where I am now.
Mm.
But there were times, for example, where I didn't want to study what I studied. And it was essentially in my head, that was not even an option for what I studied. So I studied economics. It's not something I grew up wanting to study economics. What I wanted to study was first music and then languages. And we had this conversation with, well, I'm not sure it was much of a conversation, but it was more of a directive conversation with my folks who said, no, no, you can't do money with music. You can't do, well, languages. We've done languages. It's not much money in that. Economics is something that should be studied. And I think the way that I told you when we were prepping for this is like it felt like I was pleasing them studying that particular part of those studies, which again, in hindsight, might have been a good decision because it helped with a lot of other things,
Mm,
but it does then bow the question. So what was the motive behind
mm,
doing a particular thing? And it wasn't that I wanted it. It was that, I was pleasing someone else who was an authority figure for me that I thought it would make them feel great if I would study that rather than it would make me feel great.
mm.
And the example that we brought at the beginning of this season with my with the Be Perfect driver with the jiu-jitsu medals is like that's something that I wanted, and it's not necessarily something that I like if even if it wasn't a win, doesn't matter. It's something that I would be proud about anyway. And it was for pleasing me, and that it was pleasing others as well because everyone else was happy for me, and I was happy about that,
Yeah, so lots of strokes there, and
Lots of
and
positive strokes.
and you also got to the music because if you look behind you, and then there's five guitars, so
Mm.
you got to the music side as well,
Oh yeah,
so
yeah, yeah,
in terms of feeding yourself, but it's a really interesting driver because you just what you were touching on there, Ollie, as well. Um, this idea of earning money,
yeah.
right? That could be a kind of a pleased society, right? That how much money do I need to earn to please society or to
Oh
fit in
yeah.
or to look a
Wow.
certain way, right? So that would be seen as a kind of a Western mentality. It's important
Mm.
to earn money for status, for example. You know what I mean? So there's this,
Mm.
society has these drivers that invite us, or whatever culture we grow up in, there'll be these drivers, and often please others will be at the forefront. And
Mm.
as kids, we just buy into them because we think that's the way it's supposed to be.
Right.
Until later on, I might go, actually, no, hang on, I don't need to drive a career just to earn money because it's not making me healthy.
Right.
And I don't need to worry about pleasing anybody else in terms of what kind of car I drive or how I dress. You know what I mean? I can kind of pull back if that driver is getting out of whack and start thinking about, like your example.
Yeah.
I want to do jujitsu for me. I want to do music for me. Not to for any great shakes to try and please anybody, other than just for the sheer pleasure of it, right? Or the achievement.
Right. And you know what? Not to brag, but I will expect some positive stories coming out of this. The music that we're having at the beginning of the podcast is something that I wrote. And I'm really proud to say that our podcast is starting off with a musical piece that I wrote years back, years back. Really happy about that.
Ollie, brag away. Absolutely brag
Yeah.
away. I would if I could create music like that.
And it's great that you said this because I also like the lens of it's not only inter one person. So it's not only the authority, it's about pleasing society as well as a whole thing. So it's not only about just people relations. It's also about with a whole group of people. And sometimes the saying that came to mind is we sometimes use it as a joke with Oksana, my wife. We have this mantra that sometimes in Ukraine, people would say, "Oh, what would other people say?" It's like a reference to, "Oh no, we should please others so that they don't say bad stuff about, or what, not negative stuff about it." But that's kind of what would other people say, and that sounds like a negative effect of the please others driver.
Yeah,
So
it's there. I would say it's in all cultures in some
fair
way.
enough.
You know what I mean? And again, if we come back to why I really like it is because it comes from the child ego state and it's coming from a place of wanting to please others. It comes from a place of care and actually love and affection.
Mm,
That's where it comes from, right? It's nice. I like seeing mom and dad happy or pleased with me, or
right.
I like getting those strokes from the teacher, or I want to fit into this group. So I'm gonna please a few people just to fit in. It comes from a lovely, caring place. That's why I
Mm,
like it. It's just when it gets overboard and
yeah.
we end up on the wrong track and we're thinking, okay, I've done so much to please others. Where am I now? Am I on the
Mm,
right track? Because this doesn't feel so great. And it'll be those feelings that are kind of a clue
right.
that this do I need to change something here? Do I need to speak up
Mm.
or change tack or let go of worrying about pleasing others? And it's just listening to ourselves to make those decisions as opposed to pushing too hard and ending up in a place we don't want to be.
The specific phrase you used was when it gets out of Kilter.
Kilter, when he gets out of kilter. That's a great phrase. As I said, I wouldn't know how to spell it, being dyslexic, but it's out of kilter. Things aren't
So again, as we said, it begins with a silent J, and then it goes on with 17 other letters, which we have no
kilter,
idea how to.
kilter. Good you kilter. I couldn't say that.
So listen, about talking about characters that would help us
Mm,
understand how I want to say be perfect, but no, how please
please
others
others.
is
Yeah.
like in movies and et cetera, et cetera. Do you want to kick us off? Kick us off with what character do you think would
Well,
be a
the one
good?
that popped, you have some great ones though, Ollie. The one that popped in my head is a movie I used to love. I still love, but I used to actually love growing up. The Breakfast Club.
Ooh.
About these kids who are in detention on a Saturday for kind of misdemeanors in school, the kind of way. And the youngest guy, he's a brilliant actor, Anthony Michael Hall. He was a
Hmm.
big child actor, actually. He was in
Oh
loads and
yeah.
loads of stuff, Weird Science and various other things. So he
Hmm.
was he was in detention, and his story was that I think he's tried to set fire to something, but he was really upset because in woodwork, he was trying to build this elephant where you pull the trunk of the elephant and the light goes on, and his trunk didn't work. And he was so upset because he knew it would let down his parents because he might fail that class. And if he failed that class, he didn't get the points. And he took that class because he thought it'd be easy to get the points to
Right.
please his parents. So he was really, it was a great piece of acting. He was quite distraught in
Mm.
in the movie when he's telling the story. He's crying because he's like the idea that he's couldn't disappoint his parents
Right.
because his elephant wouldn't work. Do you know what I mean? But it was really kind of in on him, and to me, that's quite real. Like at the moment, Ollie, over here in Ireland, the Leaving Cert is kicking
Oh
off,
yeah.
and that's a big one for teenage kids, and a lot of them are really really anxious because they're worried about letting somebody down, not getting enough points to get into university, to get a particular course that they want, and they get
Mm.
very very anxious because they're worried about letting somebody down.
Right.
Usually mom and dad, even though mom and dad might say, listen, don't worry about it, do your best, whatever. They go, no, that's not, this is really, it kind of gets in them. And I think Anthony Michael Hall did a really good job of that. What about you?
Uh,
Who comes to your mind for you?
well, I'll actually continue on the educational system, and this character also resonates with me in terms of the story that I shared just previously. It's another great movie. I think it's from the 80s as well, Dead Poets Society. So one of the characters there that was portrayed by Robert Sean Leonard, and he was Neil Perry. So he was he wanted to act,
Yeah, I
and
remember him.
just the mere unfortunately was a very tragic ending for
Mm.
for this particular character in the movie. But the fact that he was in that school, he was trying to all he wanted was approval from I think his father.
Yeah, yeah.
That was the approval that he wanted. And then when he got completely rejected by the fact that he was an actor and he was regarded as a very good actor by
Mm.
his peers and by the teachers, but his father just refused to accept that. And but all he wanted was to please him, showing that I could do both. I can be a great lawyer, I think he wanted him to be, but I can also do this as something that I like. And yeah, I think that that was one of these characters that kind of came to mind. And the other one, just to flip the script a little bit to a more positive vibe, is Marty McFly. No, not Marty McFly. Sorry, Marty McFly's dad, actually, George McFly.
George McFly. That's
George
right.
McFly. So, and I think that's the epitome of pleasing others and not being able to say anything in return. And the switch that happened in that Back to the Future movie is amazing. Like you always love seeing those characters kind of, no, I'm going to stand my ground. I'm also going to please myself and I'm going to do, and as you said, it comes from a caring place and a care of love because what helped him flip the switch. Oh my
Switch.
God, switch, flip the switch was the love to his future wife,
Yeah,
wasn't it?
that's right. That's
That
right.
was the caring and love to protect her from this bully who was Biff,
Absolutely.
and he
Absolutely.
wanted to flip the switch.
And he did. He did
And he did,
successfully.
and he did. So instead
Yeah.
of pleasing others and just saying yes to everything and kind of ignoring all the bullying, he stood his ground. So
See,
I love
that's a
that example.
brilliant example. It is a really brilliant because for most of that movie, he is pleasing
Oh yeah.
others, doing people's homework and being the butt of a joke and all that kind of stuff. But at the end, when he did stand up, he wasn't pleasing anybody
No.
anymore. And we in transactional analysis we say he stepped into his potency, his strength.
Oh, wow, that's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, so that's what he did in a very visceral way, and he became much stronger for it for the rest of his life. And so
Hmm.
that turning point when he let go of that please others driver. I've got another one as well, which again, if we follow on the theme of actually uh, where it can be good to a point, what popped into my head was Forrest Gump.
Oh, nice.
What such an interesting character, so well written, Forrest, and acted. But he very much has a please others driver, pleasing his mom. He really, really
Mm,
cared and loved for his mom deeply, and Ginny as well. Like he was constantly chasing after Ginny because he was madly in love with her, and
yeah.
he just wanted to be there for her. But it really, you can see it living out for him when he was in military school and all our military camp, all he did was just please the drill sergeant. That's all he did, and
Must be a genius, Forrest Gump.
that's he excelled in that environment because in that particular environment that gets you ahead. Just do what you're told. Don't question back. And he never questioned back. No matter what he was asked to do, he just got on with it. And he
Uh,
excelled because that is a pleaser the driver uh, in action in a successful way in an environment where you're supposed to please. There
hmm.
isn't much option. You're not supposed to rebel and push back.
Round pegs. It's not really hard. You just make your bed real neat and remember to stand up straight and always answer every question with, yes, drill sergeant.
Is that clear? Yes, Drill Sergeant!
It's
It's exactly
amazing.
the right thing to say. Yes, sir,
Yes.
is exactly the right thing to say in that environment. But not so
Oh,
good in work, in like in
yeah.
in normal situations, right?
No, you know what? In where it's a great segue, actually, Jason. The thing is, I think I also see as the other drivers manifest at work, and I'll focus kind of on the we say dark side, but what I mean is kind of the where it doesn't go well, you know. So a lot of the time, I really like the way you positioned this driver please others is that it comes from a caring place. So I actually want to do a really good thing by pleasing others, but it can take a step too far. And sometimes, for example, it's doing things for the wrong reason, you
Mm,
know. And I work in a sales team, and sometimes when there's pressure, when, for example, a senior representative of the organization joins a client call. So you wouldn't be doing something for the client, you'll be doing something to please that particular person, which again is fine, I think, and it's coming from a very good place. But then there might come a time where there's just a discrepancy. And so, what are you actually trying to do for the client
mm,
versus show that you're doing a good job for your manager? And you can do that in your own time, just with a debrief and et cetera, et cetera. So it happens. I think it kind of one of the examples that can happen for doing something for the wrong reason.
mm,
I think sometimes pleasing others could also kind of taking what you're doing for granted. For example, if there's a lack of time to present something, and it's, oh, we're going to skip your part, but I did a lot of it. I did, and to please that person, you're just going to say, yeah, okay, let's skip it. And
mm,
there's been countless times where I've been on the receiving end of that, where my colleagues have been on the receiving end of that, just because we weren't good in time management of some particular meeting or some
mm,
sorts. But the work that we put into it just kind of went unfazed, and the driver behind not speaking up was, you know, pleasing others.
mm.
And building on that segue is not speaking up as well.
Yeah.
Is when you think something is wrong, especially I see this in new people joining the organization, and it's very overwhelming, but they wouldn't speak up because they think, oh yeah, so who's going to listen to me? I've just been here for 2 days and nobody's going to listen to me. But that's exactly the wrong way of framing. It's very important for everyone to hear what they have to say. So I think those would be a few examples that come to mind when pleasing others takes a wrong turn at
Yeah,
work
I,
at
I,
the
I think
workplace.
they're great examples because definitely one of the negative effects of pleasing others is not challenging at all.
Oh,
And there's a place to challenge, there's a place not to challenge often, but if there's no challenging at all, then actually that can lead to some not so good quality.
and actually,
Um,
you reminded me of there's a quote on the wall at Google, and I have to remember who it is. I'll write it in the video when,
oh,
right. But there's the worst thing we can say is we've always done it this way.
ah,
So kind of challenging the status quo is very important. It's actually one of the values at Google as well. So
Yeah.
challenging the status quo, challenging what we've been doing. If it doesn't work now, we shouldn't be doing it.
Yeah, and you'd argue keeping the status quo is pleasing,
Oh,
and
ooh,
do you know what I mean? And therefore, there's no
I
innovation.
see what you did there. I see what you
Well,
did there.
thank you, sir. You can tell we didn't rehearse this.
No, no, that was kind of you kind of put the puzzle together right there. So this, how do you think we were 25 minutes in the episode? What do you think? How do you think we've progressed with please? Have we pleased the please others driver?
I'm pretty pleased. I don't. I'll ask you if you're pretty pleased in a moment, but I'm pretty pleased with where we've gotten to. We actually covered a lot of ground, I think, and it actually got it nicely deep at
Yeah,
times. You know, I mean, when we're talking about society, we're talking about here's something up on the wall that's kind of referencing, don't just keep them pleasing. I mean, we had no idea that that was going to come out. So
no.
yeah, I think we did a good job. What about yourself, sir?
I think it wasn't perfect. It was really good. I think we didn't try too hard, but it went out well, and I'm very pleased with the way it's worked out. So far we've covered three drivers in the first three episodes. And listen, you know what? I one thing that stepped that I'm taking away, and I'm going to use this going forward, is what you said about stepping into potency. So
Mm.
that's the good side of the please
Please
others
oneself.
driver.
Yeah, but
Please
challenging is
oneself, yeah.
okay.
And challenging is okay. And I think I love that because there is a positive to all the drivers that we're looking over, all the five drivers, and finding that balance for yourself is really, really important. So, with this, dear viewers, dear listeners, thank you for being with us on this episode of OK Every Day, where Jason and I talked about the Please Others driver. Now, at the beginning of the episode, I asked you to put a like and subscribe to the channel. If you haven't done so, now's a great time to do that. And we'd be really, really thankful and for you doing that. If you are interested in TA content, well, look, you're in the right place. I have to tell you this. This is the best place for TA content. So click the subscribe button and push some notification on the comments so we will keep you updated on every OK Everyday episode coming out soon. In any case, we really hope that you stay OK
Every day.
every day.